Welcome back to the Chosen Life podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Nakoan. And today I have a very special guest with me. She's got a busy schedule. She's one of the busiest people in Toronto, but I tracked her down and she is here. And we're so grateful because we have such a great time sharing stories. My good friend, Cathy Himelfarb. Cathy, welcome to the Chosen Life.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's so great to be here.
And now I got to ask you, because usually we like to save the best for last, but I want to twist it up today. I think you got a pretty cool announcement. Can I share it with the audience?
Sure. I would love you to tell everyone.
So imagine we're doing a podcast about a podcast. So we're here talking about the chosen life, and the chosen life being everybody either lives the chosen life or wants to live the chosen life. And today's episode, we're going to get to meet you, Cathy, and hear about your life. But also, you got a podcast coming out. Name is?
Our Real Life. Real being real estate. There's a little double entendre there.
Love it, love it. You must have had a crew from New York City marketing PR department. Took them weeks to come up with it, but I got to tell you, it's a killer name, Our Real Life.
Thank you.
So tell me now, if we were doing an episode of Our Real Life, and I'm tuning in today, what am I going to learn on the real life?
You're going to learn from realtors and people in related industries what inspires them and motivates them to go to work every day. And it's not just making a dollar or making a big deal. And that's what's going to really surprise you is how invested people are in making sure that their clients have a positive outcome and that they feel heard and guided throughout the whole process. So that's really what I'm hoping for. And it's how I feel and the way I run my business. And I think it's what makes our offices a little bit different than other offices is that we really care about our agents and we want that to trickle down so that our realtors in turn care about their clients.
I love it. I love it. Well, you and I have a kinship together. And when I told you that the book was coming out and I had published it and it was going to be launched, you got so excited. You brought me into your office at Forest Hill, Yorkville, got to meet all the team members and talk about the book, The Bible 3.0. And it's all about lifestyle at the end of the day, whether you're living the chosen life, the real life. I love it. So there's like a connection between us instantly.
Definitely.
So it's now turning around almost because we're not going to be discussing my real life today. We're going to be talking about yours. And I've had such a list of questions. I've known you for over a decade now, Cathy. And the first thing I knew the name. The first thing you hear Cathy Himelfarb, you know immediately Forest Hill. So it might as well be your middle name. Do you get that a lot?
Yes. I'm always surprised when people say they know me because I feel like nobody knows who I am. And but I think that people are starting to know my name and know that it's associated with a great brand and a great company and that I've been doing this for a long time. This is my 32nd year in real estate. So.
Did you start when you were 5?
Yes. No, yeah, 7.
So it's like we're pulling up to the table now, and because I know I've had the questions, and people see you in the paper, they see you in the media, and they're like, who is Cathy behind Forest Hill? So I'm going to ask you the questions that have been in my mind for so many years.
Wow.
First and foremost, once Cathy came into the world, Cathy was a baby, grew up into a toddler, into a young lady, into a woman. At what stage did Cathy knew she was going to go into real estate?
That's a very good question. So I was, prior to real estate, doing fundraising, special events, and I used to do a lot of copywriting. And those can be very difficult, challenging things to do.
Absolutely.
It's hard to ask people for money, no matter how strongly you feel about a cause. And it's difficult to write a direct mail appeal letter. I used to write them 15 times. And I thought, you know what, I could take these skills because I do like writing and I do feel like I have good people skills, and I can parlay that into real estate where I can sort of help more people and branch out into the community and still do my fundraising. Like that's what I realized later. It doesn't have to be a career. It can be something I do as a hobby.
But were you, like when you were in high school, you growing up and you became an adult, did you know doing fundraising, it was going to lead to real estate? Like, did you always have that in your vision? Because you weren't the first realtor in your family, right?
No. So my mother founded Forest Hill Real Estate.
Ronnie,
yes. In 1985 at her kitchen table. And I guess I was just graduating from university that year. I took public policy and administration, and I was very involved with the Conservative government. I helped Brian Mulroney. I was a delegate in Winnipeg. I helped him get elected as the leader of the PC party. I worked for someone named Larry Grossman, who a lot of people know, who was the minister of communications and economics, and he was actually a treasurer for a while. So I worked in his office. So those are my summer jobs.
Yes.
And I was really involved. I was like the president of my riding association. Like I was like Miss PC. And Bill Davis, who was the premier at that time, had been in power. I think the Progressive Conservatives have been in power in Ontario for 30 years. And so I figured this is a shoo-in. I'm going to graduate from university. I was in public policy and administration. I'm going to get a job for the PC, for the government, and that's going to be my life. And that year was the first time they lost an election to the Liberals, and that was it. I mean, I had to completely do a complete about face and sort of reassess what I wanted to do. So the first thing is I worked for an organization called the Canadian Association for Ethiopian Jews, and where I helped do advocacy and everything. I did relief, advocacy, and education for Ethiopian Jewry, which are a very small minority who actually lived in Ethiopia. All of this happened simultaneously with the huge famine that was going on there, and Tears Are Not Enough, and We Are the World, and all of that was happening while I was in Ethiopia, helping this little tiny segment of the community in Gondar province. And I was really passionate about it. And I would go to Ottawa, and I'd meet with politicians. So I thought, okay, well, I'm using those skills of, dealing with politics, knowing how to deal with politics. And I really stayed involved with that organization until 1991, when all the Ethiopian Jews, or most of them, were airlifted to Israel at that time. So that's how it all sort of came together.
Amazing. It's funny. I knew there was going to be a story, had no idea where it's going to go, and there's so much now coming into my head. The main question I got to ask you now is, knowing that Pierre is the one that's going to be going possibly
Yes.
to power next year when our election happens, the U.S. has their election going. But hypothetically, because I'm thinking in my head, if maybe the PC had gone a different way back then, we may have Prime Minister Cathy Himelfarb right now.
You never know.
But if the PC party calls you right now, let's say Pierre was not available, or they were going to have their election right now for delegate, and they said, Cathy, we want you to run, and we want you as Prime Minister in 2025. What would be your response to them?
I don't know. I don't think I have the strength for it now, honestly. It's just now I know too much. That's why certain things are good to do when you're a little bit younger, because
Yes.
you're not hardened. But I know so much about politics and what a struggle it is and how hard it is to get a bill passed. And I've seen so many governments come and go. And it's also a lot of negativity that you have to deal with. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that my strengths are better used elsewhere.
My thinking also, and correct me if you feel differently, but my feeling is when you reach a certain age, it's nice to go to the grocery store. It's nice to go places and not get bombarded every single minute. Because once you go into that kind of position, that's your identity. And everybody knows you as Cathy Forrest Hill, but Cathy Forrest Hill can still go to the movies, still go to dinner, and still have a life, right?
Yes, absolutely. No one's stopping me from my autograph. No.
Good.
That hasn't happened yet.
Maybe after the show they will. Now, the other thing is from real estate, it's funny because I often have a lunch with a friend who's happen to be a realtor, mortgage broker, and we always have this debate, who has the hardest job? My argument always is the realtor. And why is the realtor? Because they have to create something from nothing. You have the lawyer, you have the mortgage broker. They still often get referrals from another professional who finds the end user. But as a realtor, when you start off into the industry, I would say it's one of the most challenging jobs. And that's where if you know how to do fundraising and you've done those kind of positions, going into real estate, I think you'd have a huge step up simply because it's not that you go into the industry, right, and people just start calling you and handing you deals. You have to work for it. It's that, but if you're able to do that, you're able to prospect, you're able to meet people, associate people, then the sky could be the limit if you put in the work.
Yes. Real estate is not a profession where you need to be a genius. You don't need to have a master's degree or a PhD. You really need to have very high, what is it? Social intelligence. What do they call it?
Social IQ, that's it.
Social IQ.
Sure.
And know how to talk to people and be patient and be able to put your feelings aside and not take things too personally. And it's definitely a process. No one starts off that way because we're human beings and we're sensitive and we take things personally. But over the years, you have to be able to sort of cultivate those skills. And that's what makes you a really good realtor, is being able to be very empathetic to your, towards your clients and what they're going through, but at the same time taking a step back and trying so that you're not so involved that you're not thinking clearly.
And I promise over the coming weeks when we have Cathy back, because she's agreed to come back for a couple more weeks, and we'll talk about various issues like this as far as how to motivate yourself, how to motivate others, how to work with others. That will come as well. But a couple more questions, Cathy, as we wrap up today's episode. I got to ask you, when I first went to your office, and we talked about it off camera, right? I came to give a seminar. It was a number of years back now. But when I came to the office, the first thing I thought was Forest Hill, Yorkville. And when you have that address, when you have that name within the brand, what was the thinking? So now Forest Hill Yorkville has been open now for over a decade, right? 2013 it opened
Yes.
up?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So 2013, Forest Hill Yorkville opens. What was the process from working within Forest Hill, working as a realtor, to now saying, hey, I'm ready to go open up a branch and go to the next level? Because you know, it's not so easy versus working for yourself once then to graduate and work within the team, right?
Yeah, I think that what I was doing is prior to that for years I'd been mentoring other agents, and I was doing that within my as my role as a realtor, right? Because I was a realtor for 20 years before I had this business. So I really worked a lot with the realtors, and I mentored them, and I recruited realtors to that office, and I said, you know what, this is something I can do. And I really get a lot of satisfaction from it. I really loved it. I love helping people. You know, like a lot of the realtors who I know today will tell me stories like, you don't remember, but we were ice skating when our kids were in grade 3, and you turned to me and said, go get your license now. And I told you, no, my husband doesn't believe in me. Someone tells me the story and said that I can't do it. It's too hard and I'll never do it. And I said, don't listen to him. Listen to me. And meanwhile, she's one of our top realtors, and she's sold like, I think $30 million of real estate so far this year on a tough year. So, I mean, that's what I'm good at. I give people confidence, and I try and instill, you know, that they can believe in themselves, because once they do that, they're actually really successful. And self-doubt like really holds us all back so much that you need to have another voice in your head that's not just yours, because if yours is the only voice, then that's not always a great, encouraging, supportive voice, as we know.
It's amazing, and I know people watching right now feel the same way. When I hear you tell your story, I instantly go back into my world and think about my own stories. And it's funny, as you're telling that story, I go back to Jonathan articling in 2001, and I just found out that I was going to have an associate position on a Bay Street firm after finishing off my articling term, and a partner called me into his office. And I thought, wow, he's coming to congratulate me, because it was a hard year. It was right after September 11th. The economy was not so great. I was very excited. And the first thing he sat me down, he said, if I'm you, I'm going to look for another job right now. And I said to him, why? What did I do wrong? I got hired back. He said to me, you're too nice. You're not going to make this profession. I looked at him. I said, screw off. And I left. And all of us can relate to that. And
Yes.
that person who can tell us doubt and negativity, if we listen to them, it's amazing how different our lives could have steered.
Yes.
And there's so many people that hold themselves back, either that own voice that they tell themselves, or especially from external people. When it comes from external people, it can be very, very difficult to overcome that and say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to be the strongest me. And good on you that you're there as a strong mentor at Forest Hill. You've been doing it before Yorkville, doing it since at Yorkville. And how many people you've seen climb through the ranks when they come in as a raw rookie, unsure of themselves, and then they become top producers. Incredible.
So many, and it's so, I mean, that's the best feeling in the world. When I see people, or we have an award event every year, and I can see them move up from, okay, one year they get the bronze award, then they're getting silver, gold, and then all of a sudden it's platinum. I go, how did you do it? That's like, you're amazing. Yeah. You're this, and I always tell people, you're the story we tell because new agents get very discouraged, and you know, there's a lot of ups and downs in this business. You really have to be able to ride the roller coaster. So, because the highs are worth it. So you have to keep on, you have to stick with it. And that's why I tell the realtors, and I've told them that all year, because this was a very strange year with our interest rates peaking and then going down a little bit, but not going down as much as we thought, and people still not sort of saluting the market. As you see, buyers are still on the fence. And with all of that, I tell the agents, just stick with it. Like, you got to stick with it, and things are going to turn around. That's what this business is. I've been doing it a long time, and I've seen a lot of different cycles, And if you have the wherewithal to, to be persistent and resilient and make it through the tough times, you're going to be fine.
Last two questions for you, Cathy.
Yes.
The name Forest Hill Real Estate. You've grown up with it. You've seen it evolve. What does the name Forest Hill mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's why I do what I do for a living. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good question. I have to think about when I hear Forest Hill, I think about my mother and her coming to me and saying, I'm opening up a brokerage and it's going to be called Forest Hill Real Estate. And maybe we can talk about that a little more in the next episode. And so I'd love to tell that story. And I think about that. And I think about it's, sort of humble beginnings and how many people are involved now and how many lives have been touched by it. Like how many homes, like you could walk down the street and go, I sold that house, that house, that house. And this one was a Forest Hill listing. And this one, just like you really make an impact on a community when you're a real estate company because you sort of determine who's going to be there and, and who's going to be the next generation of that neighborhood. So that's what I think about.
I'll tell you what the name means to me. I remember growing up as a young boy in the North York area in Toronto. My parents would drive me through Forest Hill, and they always said to me, when you are in Forest Hill, you've made it to Forest Hill, you've made it in life. There's a prestige level to it. There's a branding to it. And people, they live in the area, they dine, they have a coffee, they go to their bank. There's just a feeling of uplifting when you're in Forest Hill. There's something about it. And I love that your mom picked that name. I think she did very well with that. And you're reading my mind because we are leading up to next week. Because next week we are going to talk about family and the importance of family. But today it's our real life, your real life. So as I end today's episode, I got to ask you, Cathy, when Ronnie sat you down as you came to the industry, what is the best advice that she gave you? Mother to daughter. Mother to daughter
is, this is a great business, but don't let it take over your life. Because it can, we know it's a 24-hour-a-day business, and people call us day and night. And she used to say to me, this isn't brain surgery. No one's going to, she used to say, that's what she used to say. This isn't brain surgery. No one's going to die on the table. If someone calls you and you're busy with your kids or you're busy with your family and you have to call them back in a half hour, it can wait a half hour. Know how to prioritize.
Mom preached work-life balance. I love it. This is Cathy Himelfarb of Forest Hill Real Estate, Jonathan Cohen, and we'll be back next week we'll be returning and talking about family on the Chosen Life podcast. Stay tuned.